And here joining us from the Centered on Buffalo podcast, he played in the National Football League for a long time. He was a Pro Bowler in 2015. He played for the Buffalo Bills. And here to talk about the Buffalo Bills AFC Championship game against the Chiefs is Eric Wood. Eric, thank you so much for joining us today, my man.
Yeah, my pleasure. Looking forward to catching up.
Yeah, Eric, the first thing we got to talk about, of course, is this is a Bills team that not a lot of people thought they were going to be this team that was going to get back to the championship game, be Super Bowl contenders. Just kind of what's your overall assessment of how this year played out, just getting to this game and giving us what could be the best game for the rest of the year?
Yeah, there was a lot of people that doubted what the Bills could do this season for a number of reasons. First off, you move on from Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, Tre'Davious White, Mitch Morse, the center that had been there with Josh Allen since Josh got drafted to the Bills. You move on from all those pieces, and people didn't know what the Bills had, the talent that they had developed, the guys that they had brought in to fill in to those shoes. And then also, people thought the Dolphins were going to light up the division this year. Others thought the Jets and Aaron Rodgers were, and the Bills in consistent fashion like they've been, ever since essentially 2019, are back in the playoffs and making a run at this thing.
Yeah, and I really want to start with Josh Allen, of course. He's continued to evolve. A lot of people debate, is this a rivalry? Josh Allen, who has all the success against him in the regular season. Josh Allen 4-1 against Mahomes and the Chiefs in the regular season, but 0-3 against the Chiefs in the playoffs. What needs to be different about this Bills performance and specifically Josh Allen to get this win on the road against a team that's trying to make history, being the first team to three-peat in the history of the league?
Well, I don't think it has a lot to do with Josh for the reasons that, we haven't got past the Chiefs in the playoffs. And yes, he's got the 0-3 record, but in those 3 games, averaged 28 points a game, 342 yards of total offense per game, 9 touchdowns, 1 interception. I think we would lock all of that in right now heading to Kansas City tomorrow if you said, we could just take that. Where the Bills have fallen short in the playoffs is putting pressure on Patrick Mahomes. His quarterback rating against the Bills in the regular season, 87. That jumps to 127 in the playoffs versus the Bills. They have not been able to put pressure on him, and they haven't been able to get the Chiefs off the field consistently enough. Now, Taylor Rapp, the Bills starting safety, he's going to be out for the game this weekend, but pretty much everyone else is healthy. That's a different change compared to what's happened in those previous matchups of the playoffs against the Chiefs when we've gone in with a super banged up defense.
Yeah, and you look at that matchup right there and trying to get to this Chiefs offense, and it's a very interesting Chiefs team. They've only scored over 30 points in a game just twice. And it almost feels like if you're Kansas City, it's okay, keep it close, and Mahomes will get us past the finish line. But you look at this Bills defense, they can do a lot of things that can make life difficult for him as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is it's a weird dynamic because everyone was so used to the early success of Patrick Mahomes' career where they have this high-flying offense, and they got guys like Tyreek Hill out there, and they're taking the top off the defense. They have all these explosives, and they use the Tyreek Hill draft capital to go bring in a bunch of defensive guys. You bring in a Trent McDuffie, you bring in a George Karlaftis, you got Hall of Famer Chris Jones on that side of the ball. You got one of the best defensive coordinators in football in Steve Spagnuolo. So the way that they've kind of shifted this team is, look, our defense is good enough. We don't have to go chase explosive. We just take care of the football, and we know how to win. Now, they were very fortunate at the end of the games this year, and that's no secret. That's not a slight on the Chiefs. They're a great team regardless if Isaiah Likely's toe's not on the line in week 1 and the Ravens win that one. Against the Broncos, a 30-yard field goal block. They were on the ropes late in the season. A ball banks off the uprights, or else we'd be playing this game in Orchard Park and not in Arrowhead. But regardless, this team knows how to win, and they have so much experience throughout the roster. They've played in so many big games that it just seems like, they can figure it out at the end of the game. And so that's where, you saw Sean McDermott get super aggressive in the earlier matchup this season where they went for it on 4th and 2, and Josh runs it in from 26 yards out, one of the plays of the year. But the reason they went for it there was because they didn't want to give the Chiefs the ball back only down 5 if they kicked the field goal.
Yeah, and I think you look at the first matchup this season, you kind of break it down and you almost think, oh, wait, the Chiefs actually lost that game and the Bills won that game, but it's how do you kind of recreate what you had in that one? And you look at Spagnuolo's defense and going up against Josh Allen, and you still commit to the run if you're the Bills, knowing basically, hey, if you spread things out, if you give Josh Allen the ability to go and make plays, he can go for 400 yards. He can put the ball in the air. You can get those explosive plays, or you kind of go with what got you here, and that's stick with that run and try to establish that early on in the game.
Yeah, I think the way the Bills are running the football right now, you got to test this Kansas City defense with the run game. James Cook has been phenomenal in the playoffs. Besides Josh Allen, probably their best weapon on offense. They run for 357 yards in the playoffs through 2 games so far against the number 1 and the number 3 ranked run defense in the NFL. And so I expect the Bills to keep the ball on the ground just like they had the last 2 weeks, but then use that to be able to set up the play action, attack these the linebackers in coverage for Kansas City. Kansas City surrenders the most yards per play to tight ends in the entire NFL, and that's not an accident. It's because you can attack these linebackers in coverage.
Yeah, 32 rushing touchdowns, a top 10 rushing offense for the Bills. Just the offense as a whole has been explosive really for the last 10, 12 weeks. I mean, they've been fantastic. Basically getting 27 points per game, 4 touchdowns. What needs to happen in this one going up against this Chiefs defense that can get pressure with their front 4, has a lot of dynamic playmakers? What do you think is the biggest key for having that offense go on the road and scoring points at Arrowhead?
Yeah, I think it's eliminating your mistakes, and that's penalties, whether that's pre-snap or holdings, and not getting way behind the sticks and allowing Spagnuolo to be super creative with his blitz packages and all that. I think establishing the run can help take the crowd out of it a little bit and really help mitigate those blitzes. Kansas City blitzes 5th most in the NFL, and they're creative with it. They'll come off the slots. They'll burn corner blitzes. I mean, they come from everywhere, so it's tough to diagnose. And then when you're playing at Arrowhead, you can't communicate verbally at the line of scrimmage. And so you got to be able to have some, nonverbal answers to the blitzes, whether that's hots, whether that's, sight adjustments by the receivers. You got to be able to handle those. And so I think taking care of the football is pinnacle, but you don't want to be overly conservative either, because despite what this Chiefs team has done throughout this season and kind of a lackluster offensive performance, they always have the ability with number 15 to put up some points.
Yeah, I mean, you saw the 2 takeaways they had in week 11. That was big. And you look at this Chiefs team, they don't turn the football over. The Bills, they don't turn the football over. Not trying to manifest anything for the Chiefs, but I think people that don't want to see them in the Super Bowl are kind of hoping for a turnover there. What has been the key to this Bills offense getting an NFL high 35 takeaways and only turn the ball over 8 times this entire season?
A lot of that's just making good decisions. Obviously, the coaching staff will say we emphasize it. We talk about it. We practice it. We practice ball security. We practice taking the ball away. But, a lot of it is the guys just out there executing. The guys on defense are going after the ball constantly. You saw the play by Terrell Bernard where he punches the ball out of Mark Andrews' arms last week. He's not even going for the tackle in that instance. He's just punching at the football and comes up with the fumble. And so they'll take some chances like that defensively to try and force turnovers, just understanding, throughout league history, generally winning the turnover margin is going to give you a great chance to win the football game. And then offensively, Josh Allen has done a great job protecting the football this year. Now, they haven't had, knock on wood, any fumbles outside of, a couple from Josh Allen this season, but he's statistically having the most efficient season of all time in limiting negative plays. He has the least amount of combined sacks, fumbles, interceptions in a season in NFL history. And so you got to give him credit for, at times taking those chances and putting on a show and getting those big boy highlights that we love. And then at other times, simply just taking what the defense gives them.
Yeah, I'm not trying to jinx anything, but Josh Allen, the Bills, they haven't committed turnover in their last 4 playoff games. That's the first time in history that we've seen that. But the Chiefs have gone 8 straight games without a turnover. So there, we'll put the jinx more on the Chiefs on this one. Now, as far as the chess match goes, I think this is the most fascinating part of the game is Spagnuolo versus this Bills offense. And if you get up front and you're able to get pressure and you're this Chiefs team that can do that at a high clip, then you're in a good spot. But if you are sending different looks and he's doing different coverage rotations towards his way, I mean, things can get a little bit to a point where you're trying to expose that. What do you think is the biggest key for Josh Allen in this one to make sure that really this offense that we've seen does the same thing and you basically take advantage of that?
Yeah, you simply got to find your answers. In the first game, they were attacking Johnson, who was their corner filling in for Watson that was injured. Watson's back now, but in the first matchup, they had two big plays down the field to Cooper beating the blitz, and that was the answer. So you got to know the answer and anticipate. The blitz is coming. They're going to dial it up. They're probably going to give you something you haven't seen. So find your answers, get rid of the ball. At times, it might be taking a sack because you snap the ball, the play's dead, and, try and make something happen. And if not, don't put the ball in harm's way. But when you blitz at that rate, you can be burned. And in the first matchup against the Chiefs, Josh was able to burn them on the blitz pretty good.
Now, as far as these secondary players, the guys like Amari Cooper, has been a little quiet lately. He's been all in. He's still embracing it. He just wants to win. How important is that for this Bills offense? And on the other side, too, is kind of getting those second and third weapons involved and having the edge from that standpoint.
Yeah, I honestly think that it's an advantage for the Bills that they don't have a true number one receiver. Oftentimes you go into a game and two things. One, if you have one of those big time number one receivers, they want the ball. You got to force it to them early, keep them into the game, keep them happy. And then also the defenses know that. So they put their best cover guy on them. They roll coverages to them. Each and every week, it could be a different player for the Bills that leads them in catches, in yards. And that makes them tough to defend, tough to cover. And look, Mac Hollins led the team in touchdown receptions this year. He was brought in essentially to be a core special teamer and play, just a minor role on offense. He ends up being this unbelievable blocking wide receiver and a red zone threat based upon his size at 6'4", 6'5".
Yeah, and Dalton Kincaid, when he has success, the team has success. The last time they faced each other, you look at the numbers and production he put up. The Bills are undefeated when he has over 50 yards receiving. Allen last week, in the win, he had 127 passing yards. For the passing game, is it about Kincaid, is it about Cooper, or is it just trying to find what works and take advantage of those mismatches?
Yeah, all year they've had this mentality of everybody eats. And so find the matchup that you want to attack throughout the game and just run with it. So I expect them to stay the same. Now, I would expect Kincaid to get some looks, just the Bills understanding that Chiefs have struggled defending tight ends throughout the season.
Give me an X factor on offense.
I'll say James Cook, and I say that not only in the run game, but also in the pass game, because when you get blitzes, oftentimes your easiest answer is swinging it out to the back. And if he's able to make guys miss out there in space, especially when there's a blitz, there's not that many defenders left behind the line of scrimmage. And so give me James Cook as an X factor.
How about on the defensive side?
I want to say Ed Oliver, because interior pressure drives quarterbacks nuts. That's where you can really affect the quarterback in the pocket, especially with the interior rush. Patrick Mahomes' pocket presence is so good that oftentimes the edge rushers don't affect him that much because you can maneuver them. When it's coming right up the gut, that can play a factor. If the Chiefs are going to still roll with their starting left guard, Joe Thuney playing left tackle, and they have Caliendo at left guard, that's got to be a matchup where the Bills can make some hay there.
And as far as your biggest concern about what this Chiefs team presents, is it Patrick Mahomes? Is it Chris Jones in the defensive? Is there's one big concern that this Chiefs team gives you? What is it?
Probably Mahomes. I'd love to get creative here and say the biggest concern is something with the defense, but it's Mahomes. It's Mahomes in the fourth quarter, and NFL Network's been playing it all week. The 13-second game, and I've just seen it happen too many times where Patrick Mahomes finds a way to win at the end. And so that's kind of how I started it off. You got to be able to put pressure on him in the pocket. And I feel like the reason the Bills have been eliminated these last 4 years of the playoffs, when you felt like they had a phenomenal roster, it's a lack of being able to put the pressure on, Mahomes last year, Burrow the year before, Mahomes the previous 2 years.
Yeah, I also want to ask you, too, is just from a mindset standpoint, this Chiefs team trying to three-peat, the Bills trying to get to the Super Bowl for the first time since 1993. It feels like this is a Bills team that's ready to get over the hump. Would you agree?
It certainly feels like it, but you still got to go out and execute. And, Kansas City wants to set history and get the first three-peat ever in the NFL. Like, that's something they really wanted. It also adds some pressure to them. Bills had plenty of pressure on them. Josh Allen's got plenty of pressure on him because, they're trying to get over that hump and get to where Kansas City is. And so there's great narratives on both sides of this, and it's going to be a fun one.
Hey, Bills Mafia is going to be out in force, and we know that Bills fans everywhere are hoping and praying for this. And I think that fans that don't want to see the Chiefs and the little Chiefs fatigue, Taylor Swift in the Super Bowl, are rooting for the Bills. If we're going to do one of those maps, I think a lot of people around the country would be a Bills logo inside their state, outside, of course, Kansas City. But prediction time. Eric, can you give us a score prediction and just kind of tell us how you think this game will play out?
My guess, and I said it on my Center on Buffalo podcast, is 24-17 Bills. Both these teams sustain long drives. I don't think there's going to be a ton of possessions in this game. And I feel like both these teams will stall out one time and have to kick a field goal. And ultimately, Buffalo gets it done. I could even see them being up a couple scores at the end, and Kansas City gets one to make it 24-17.
Hey, Buffalo fans are going to like to hear that. But, Eric, we got to have you on the show at some point again to talk about your career, by the way, former first-round pick, Pro Bowler. But the podcast is incredible. Even if you're not a Bills fan, you should tune in to talk NFL football, listen to football from someone that's a former player that knows the game as well as anyone. The podcast that you do with Dan Orlovsky was a must-listen. So, all football fans, go out there, watch it, subscribe to his channel. And Eric, we thank you so much. And hey, good luck to your Buffalo Bills this Sunday, my man.
I appreciate it. That was a fun one, man.
Oh, awesome, man. Anytime. Thanks a lot, Eric. Really appreciate it, man.
Yep, for sure.
And that was Eric Wood. Definitely go check out his podcast. Go subscribe to his YouTube channel. Now, for me, I think the Bills are going to win. I think the Bills are going to find a way to break through against Kansas City on Sunday on the road. This is a different version of the Bills. This is a team that knows how to possess the football, doesn't turn the football over, that runs the football. Against the Ravens, that was one of the keys to their success. Is they ran the ball 36 times for 147 yards. You had 3 touchdowns. I think it's going to be a very similar strategy. I got Bills over the Chiefs 29-22. But I'm going to bring in John Robinson, the fourth, for your prediction.
Yeah, so Doug, I'm going to be honest, I'm taking the Chiefs. I mean, if there's any player who has been chosen by the football gods, it has always been Patrick Mahomes. He is blessed by the football gods beyond belief, talent, and the way games have ended for him. This is those moments during that Patriots dynasty, Doug, where it's just like, I have to see it to believe it. I want to believe that the Bills can pull off this upset, but it is hard to go against the baby goat of the NFL right now. He's just remarkable in what they've been able to do this year. Doug, in a down year, they lost 2 games in the regular season.
All true, but as I point out, this is not that explosive Chiefs team. They've only scored over 30 points twice this season, and I look at the offensive line for the Bills, getting Brown back, having Cook, having the inability to get to JA7. That's going to be very difficult for a vaunted Chiefs defense. I think he's going to be upright. You got better conditions. And look, at some point, the tide has to turn. Allen's 4-1 against Mahomes in the regular season, but Mahomes is 3-0 in the playoffs. And it's very difficult to three-peat. This isn't a Bills team that was expected to be one of the dominant teams in football, but it just feels like this is Josh Allen and the Bills year. Give me the Bills in an upset. Do it for America, okay? The Bills win, America wins, unless you want to see a three-peat. Look, I'm always here for greatness, and I certainly believe that Patrick Mahomes has already cemented himself as one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history, but the Bills haven't been to the Super Bowl since 1993. I got Bills Mafia on Sunday.